The mothership Poseidon's Reach rose from the Pacific like a steel cathedral, anchored by thrusters fighting the ceaseless swell. Dr. Sarah Chen had been at sea for 11 days. The landmine had finally released its hold on her consciousness. Behind her, the recovery team moved through their preparations, voices lost in the wind and the eternal thunder of ocean against hull. The target lay 2.5 miles below the keel, coordinates fixed by months of sonar surveys and the analysis of shipping records.
Chen tracked whispers through port authorities and digital shadows. The trail led to shell corporations, convenient fires, and an anonymous source.
The submersible Triton VII waited in its cradle, a sphere designed to cross the threshold into another world.
Recovery team lead Marcus Webb performed his pre-dive checks with the ease of 3 decades working beneath crushing pressure.
Chen climbed the access ladder, movements careful on the slick rungs, entering the mechanical womb. The hatch sealed with 16 bolts. The world reduced to instrument displays and the fisheye view through the dome.
They touched the swell, and the crane lowered them into the embrace of another world.
The transition happened in layers. First, the surface turbulence, a chaos of bubbles and refracted light.
At 50 meters, the color spectrum began to collapse. Red light disappeared first.
At 100 meters, they passed through a thermocline, a boundary where temperature dropped suddenly. At 200 meters, the viewport showed nothing but void. Okafor switched on the external lights. Twin xenon arrays revealed a marine snowstorm, an endless drift of the ocean's slow rain. They entered the twilight zone. The only illumination came from their lights and the occasional spark of bioluminescence.
At 1,000 meters, pressure exceeded 100 atmospheres. Small groans transmitted through the hull, flexing under load.
The mothercraft above had receded into impossibility, separated by an expanse of hostile medium. At 2,500 meters, the slope sonar began returning echoes. The abyssal plain was rising to meet them.
The submersible settled onto the bottom. They had arrived at a pressure of 380 atmospheres.
They began a slow, methodical search across a landscape that had never seen sunlight. They searched for 90 minutes, covering transects, their sonar pinging into the darkness. Then Webb pointed at the sonar display. A rectangular echo had appeared at the edge of their range.
Webb deployed the manipulator arm, brushing sediment from the container's identification plate.
The characters were revealed. This was container CSNU 847392K, the first of the 3.
Securing them required methodical precision. Each cable was attached to the container's reinforced fittings. When all 3 were rigged, Okafor triggered the float packages. Compressed air provided positive buoyancy. The container lifted free, trailing sediment like a ghost rising from a grave.
One by one,
The containers pulled free and began their ascent toward the distant surface.
The ascent took 3 hours, rising through the same zones in reverse, the pressure gradually decreasing.
At 1,000 meters, light began to return, first as a subtle lessening of the absolute black.
At 500 meters, they could see the surface as a wavering silver membrane, distorted by distance. The shadow of the Poseidon's Reach grew larger, a dark mass of home and safety. They broke surface into gray daylight. The crane engaged and lifted them from the embracing ocean. The hatch unsealed. Chen emerged stiff from 7 hours in the confined sphere, muscles protesting. The 3 containers were secured on deck, 40 feet of corroded steel covered in sediment and deep-sea growth. The washing took hours. High-pressure jets blasted away the accumulated ooze of the abyssal plain.
Amphipods washed from crevices. Deep-sea species flopped on the deck, dying in the warm, thin air.
As sediment washed away, the container's details emerged. Dents, scratches, and the serial numbers that had been altered from the manifests. The cutting crew moved in. The acetylene torch could melt steel, following the perimeter of the sealed door. The first container gave up its door panel with a shriek, revealing the darkness inside. The contents were stone tablets, Khmer artifacts, likely looted from archaeological sites in Cambodia. The container held hundreds, perhaps thousands of stone artifacts, a cargo worth millions, but priceless in cultural significance. The second container held more. Chinese tomb guardians, Thai Buddha heads, Vietnamese ceramics.
The third container proved most disturbing. Burmese artifacts, Indonesian gold, Filipino jewelry.
Chen recorded every item. The hits came back one after another, pieces reported stolen from museums and protected sites.
The crew worked through the night, creating the records essential for repatriation. The Triumph felt hollow against the evidence.
Each piece was evidence of a crime and a fragment of human expression from hands that were now dust.
7 years underwater. The smugglers probably assumed it was all lost. Insurance paid out, everyone moved on.
The ocean kept its countless other secrets, waiting for the next journal into the abyss.
When the eastern sky began to pale, Chen permitted herself to rest. Dawn broke over the Pacific.
Light returned to the world, illuminating the evidence of centuries, now secured on deck.
They had found what they were looking for. They had brought it back. The mission was complete.
Chen allowed herself to feel the triumph of succeeding as something genuinely difficult, of returning treasure from the depths.
The work of preservation began. Each artifact was wrapped and crated for the long journey toward restitution.
In the ship's laboratory, forensic analysis began.
Every detail could help trace an artifact back to its specific temple or tomb.
Preliminary reports were sent via satellite. Interpol and cultural ministries in a dozen nations were notified of the recovery.
The Poseidon's Reach turned toward port, its holds now carrying a cargo more precious than any commercial salvage.
The 2-year investigation had been a puzzle of whispers and shadows. Now, the physical proof lay just decks below.
The final inventory was logged. 3 shipping containers, now empty of their stolen history, waited to be disposed of.
The containers themselves were evidence, but too large to keep. They were cut apart. Their role in the crime scene concluded.
Chen briefed international authorities. The legal and diplomatic process for repatriation would be complex and take years.
For the crew, the human moment returned. Shared meals, shared fatigue, the bond of a hard job done well.
You never get used to it. Bringing something back that was meant to stay lost.
The Pacific reminded them of its power. A storm approached, but the ship was built for weather.
In the storm's heart, she felt a connection to the tempest that had begun this journey.
The storm passed. The morning revealed a pacified ocean, the air sharp and clean.
Land ho!
After weeks at sea, land appeared. The smudge on the horizon marked the end of the oceanic phase of the journey.
They reached port. The industrial coastline was a jarring contrast to the abyssal plain.
The artifacts were concealed. Their arrival was kept low-key to avoid attracting the wrong kind of attention. The transfer began. Under guard, the crates moved from the ship to a secure, temporary holding facility. Experts from the nations of origin were waiting. For them, this was not salvage. It was a homecoming.
A public announcement was made. A major international smuggling ring had been disrupted. The artifacts would be returned.
The debriefings were lengthy. Chen provided every detail of her investigation, every name, every whisper that led to the coordinates.
The bureaucratic world felt confining after the abyssal plain. The mission was over, but the work continued in files and meetings.
The first formal repatriation ceremony. It was a moment of justice, however small, in a vast system of illicit trade.
Webb had retired from deep-sea salvage. The abyss is for the young, he said, though his eyes still looked seaward.
One by one, the artifacts found their way into museums, into contexts of respect and education.
Chen returned to teaching. She used the recovery as a case study in archaeology, in ethics, and in the relentless pursuit of truth.
村民上，村我者吧，曾将我抓，曾为他。
She pointed to the map. Most of it is still down there. History, tragedy, treasure, waiting. The ocean kept its secrets. And there were always those willing to go into the depths to find them. The depth between worlds holds our lost history. Chen engaged with the source, her questions precise. Each new lead required proof before committing a ship and crew.
The Star of Bengal was lost in a typhoon in 2008. Its manifest was vague.
Officially, it was another tragic loss at sea. The storm provided perfect cover for a different kind of disappearance.
The pattern repeated. A storm, a vague manifest, a destination known for discreet auctions. It was the same playbook.
The Bengal, deep water, rough topography. It won't be like the plane.
Securing funding was its own odyssey. The success of the Poseidon recovery opened doors, but the budget was staggering.
The new mothership, Aegir's Quest, was a converted oceanographic vessel. Faster, quieter, equipped for longer missions.
The team was reassembled, augmented with experts for the challenging seabed terrain they would face.
Setting out again, The memory of the first recovery was both a blueprint and a weight. Expectations were higher now.
Could be a debris field. Could be geological.
We keep looking. The canyon has more secrets.
The search stretched into a second week. The vastness of the search grid became a psychological challenge. A storm forced a pause, a grim echo of the typhoon that had sent the Bengal to the bottom years before.
The post-storm ocean was a different creature, often revealing what it had churned up from below.
There, Jensen said. The silhouette matched the length and beam of the Star of Bengal. It had been hidden by a rockfall.
The mood shifted instantly. The tedious search became a targeted mission. The submersible was prepared.
The descent was faster this time, dropping toward the complex topography of the canyon system. The pressure hull groaned familiarly as they passed 2,000 meters, entering the canyon's shadow.
Then they saw it. The stern of the Star of Bengal, broken and
the ship had broken apart. The containers it carried would be scattered down the canyon slope, buried or carried away by currents.
They followed the debris field, a scatter of metal and hope, descending deeper into the canyon.
The first container was found in a precarious tomb, jammed into a crack in the Earth's crust. 7 containers, a fortune in gold, sunk to hide it from auditors, governments, or rival factions.
Recovery was an engineering nightmare. One wrong move could bury their submersible and the treasure forever.
They used controlled explosives not on the steel, but on the rock that imprisoned it. A calculated risk.
The rock fractured. The container broke free, settling on the softer sediment below, intact.
Each gold-filled container weighed exponentially more. The lift systems had to be recalibrated, tested.
One by one, the containers of gold began their ascent, a reverse waterfall of stolen wealth returning to the surface.
The ascent was a time for quiet reflection. They had found a different kind of secret, a different kind of theft.
Security was paramount. The transfer of the containers happened in darkness, under armed guard and radio silence. The assay confirmed it. High-purity gold. The serial numbers would trace it to a central bank that had misplaced reserves years ago. The journey back was a gauntlet. A floating fortune attracted danger, from pirates to corporate espionage.
Chen coordinated with international financial crime units. This recovery would trigger investigations at the highest levels.
The transfer was swift and clinical. The gold disappeared into the labyrinth of state-level financial forensics.
The ocean had yielded 2 treasures, one of culture, one of capital. Both had...
Each recovery was a thread pulled from the tapestry of global crime. There were always more threads, more depths to explore.
The depth between worlds holds more than secrets. It holds accountability. And she was just getting started.
The work continued. The next lead pointed east, to the Atlantic Sargasso Sea, and a different kind of lost vessel.
The trail went cold, then hot again with a historical angle. A clipper ship, the Celestial Dawn, lost in 1883. The survivor's account was vague, speaking of a scientific expedition funded by a private consortium. Their goal was never stated.
1883?
The wood's gone. Anything metal will be a concretion.
It's a forensic
scrape.
Dr. Alara Vance specialized in 19th century Meredith trade. Her expertise would be crucial to understanding the Celestial Dawn's true mission.
The Nereus Explorer was a different tool for a different task, finding a ghost in a seaweed-choked sea. The Sargasso, a sea within a sea, bound by currents, a graveyard of lost ships and drifting mysteries.
The magnetometer went wild. Not the signature of a shipwreck, but of something scattered, like a handful of nails thrown across the seabed.
This isn't a wreck site, it's a debris field. The ship didn't sink intact, it came apart.
The ROV revealed the truth. The seabed was a garden of strange, lumpy formations, the remains of the Celestial Dawn.
The first artifact wasn't nautical. It was scientific equipment, fused by time and seawater into a monstrous shape.
Lessons. The cargo was a mobile laboratory. The Royal Society for Esoteric Inquiry was a known front for fringe.
They sampled the environment. The sand itself was contaminated with metallic particulates unknown in nature.
The analysis was alarming. Radioactive isotopes. The Celestial Dawn had...
The mission changed instantly.
They contained what they could. The lead-lined boxes, the sealed bottles, the corrupted instruments. There would be no museum display for this recovery. The cargo went directly to a government nuclear forensics facility. The motive became clear. Not art, not gold, but the pursuit of a scientific advantage so potent it was worth the extreme risk.
The Celestial Dawn's secret died with its crew. Its legacy was a patch of radioactive sand.
They left a marker and a warning. Some secrets, once brought to light, are better left contained in the dark.
Chen synthesized the lessons. The ocean floor was a ledger of human ambition, for beauty, for wealth, for power.
These are the depths we plunder. These are the consequences we raise.
Her work changed guidelines. Now, a wreck's potential environmental threat was as important as its historical value.
For luck. The abyss is yours now. Just don't forget to come up for air.
She understood then. The source was a counterforce, using her as a tool to balance the scales, one wreck at a time. The real map isn't the wrecks we find. It's the connections between them. The patterns of human desire.
And for those willing to look, with clear eyes and a steady light, it has stories yet to tell.